Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting from New Zealand, the fabulous, the fluoridated, the allegedly irradiated, but of course we don't know because we stopped testing the seawater. You know, we figured what's the worst that could happen? A whole bunch of contaminated products and contaminated seafood would flood our shelves and give everybody cacophonous cancer rates. Nah, that's fine, bro. You know, we'll just drink more homogenized, pasteurized New Zealand brand milk in a black plastic bottle or something like that. You know, it'll all work itself out in the end. Nature works very, very well, especially at wiping out parasites that kind of live on its back. My very special guests are the creators of Joy Camp. We've got here. Guys, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, Vinny. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man. Glad to be back.
Oh, my God. I got such a terrible thing here. I only remember Benny. I can't remember your name, bro.
Didn't you say it? I thought you just said it.
You guys from Joy Camp.
Oh, yeah, it's Kevin.
Kevin and Benny. All right. That's better. That makes me feel a lot less uncomfortable.
You're Vinny, right?
Yeah.
Make sure.
Or is it Vincent?
No. It go by Vinny. Vinny Eastwood. You know, Vinny with a Y. It's the most important question. Eastwood doesn't go ahead. Make my news.
Like Clint Eastwood, or
yeah.
Okay.
Apparently, I'm like 15th cousins or some crap. So my mother tells me, but she never showed me the genealogy thing. So the most famous celebrity that I'm related to is Lucy Lawless' first cousin.
First cousin. Wow,
that's pretty good.
Xena warrior princess.
Yeah, it's where I get my crazy megaphone antics from.
Oh, of course, that makes
it's all coming together now.
Yeah. In fact, it would be really good to, jump through the air onto the shoulders of my prime sinister. But
I'd say go for it, man. Just say yes.
Yeah, just be you.
Just say yes to getting arrested.
Exactly. Words of wisdom from Joy Camp.
In fact, I was interviewing a hemp producer the other day, and he was talking about how having these really good hemp smoothies can actually relieve the symptoms of PTSD. And I told him how I got mine was getting busted by the cops. And he's like, no, this can solve that. And I go, well, no problem, bro. I'll tell you what, you make me a smoothie and I'll go get myself arrested by the cops and I'll see if I handle it better, you know?
So did you get your smoothie or what?
Nah, he gimped out on me.
Damn it.
You know, when it comes to the crunch. Anyway. What have you guys been up to? Because I introduced my wife to your YouTube channel the other week. She was really, really sick. And I saw these research articles about the benefits of comedy. One of which stipulated that they had these two test groups of women. One in one room watching boring travel shows. And one other group of women in another room watching really, really funny stuff, right? And they're laugh out loud funny, right? And what they found was they monitored the blood, testing for antibodies, you know, the kind of stuff that fights viruses, white blood cells, that kind of thing. And they found that the women who were watching the comedy stuff had a 40% higher antibody count. And so, in an effort to help my wife get, well, I introduced her to Joy Camp, and she got well.
Wow. That's awesome, man. You probably should have just put on the Food Channel, because women love the Food Channel.
They do.
Well, that's actually the best thing I've heard all day, man.
Thank you. That's really nice.
That's great to hear.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm glad it helped her, too. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of what I do, you know.
Yeah.
You could have just sat there and told her jokes.
She doesn't like my jokes. She dislikes me so... She really likes you guys now, but she dislikes me so much that she won't listen to this interview.
Well, then if you ever get into hot water with her, just throw one of our videos her way.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully it'll work, you know. Something sponsored by Sia.
Most definitely. Everything we do is sponsored by Sia.
Isn't everything almost everybody does now sponsored by Sia? I mean...
Or at least everybody is suspicious that someone else is working for Sia.
Yeah.
Everybody at some point is guilty of being a potential Sia employee.
It's like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, except it's Sia.
Yeah. The 6 degrees of Sia.
Yeah, exactly. That's it, man. We figured it out.
Yeah. I mean, people want to join Sia now, but I want to see it later.
Precisely.
Yeah. Now, speaking of which, the element of comedy within the truth movement, I've been talking to a lot of really serious researchers recently, guys, on my show, and frankly, it's so necessary to inject comedy into the truth movement for one primary reason, or at least what I think is the most important reason for it: sanity.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth?
Ultimately, I mean, did you guys, like me, before you started to kind of laugh about this kind of thing, did you, I don't know, get depressed, angry, go through that phase where you lose most of your friends, your family stop talking to you, and you kind of lose your sense of humor for a little bit before you rediscover it?
All of the above.
Yeah, we definitely went through that. I think, everybody has that moment when you decide to, plummet down whatever rabbit hole. It's not a very happy experience. So we've all been there. Lucky for me and Kevin, we had each other throughout all of it. So we were always able to laugh. So we didn't lose our senses of humor through it, but we definitely went through the crazy phase, the maddening phase of not really knowing what to do with the information and not really knowing how to express it to people.
I'm actually interested to know exactly how this happened. Would you mind recounting this story? I mean,
of how we
for me, I watched a documentary, and a friend introduced me to Bill Hicks at the same time, and they sort of merged, and my brain got messed up by it, and
messed started up off.
Yeah, I mean, the short version of that, I think you're asking us what our background with all this.
Yeah, a long version would be preferable.
The long version. All right. Yeah, well, Kevin and I met in junior college about, 11 or 12 years ago?
Yeah, 11
years ago. And this was pre-YouTube days. So maybe if YouTube was around, it definitely wasn't something that everybody was aware of. And so there weren't viral videos. There wasn't instant access to information and alternate points of view available back then like they are now. And we hit it off just on a friendship basis, and
like a real way.
Yeah, like a real genuine friendship, and we were able to make each other laugh. And I think that's when you know you have a real friend, is when you have the same sense of humor. And then at the same time, we both were introduced to a video in college about the Pentagon, and it was a short video, like 7 minutes. There was no narration. It was only words on the screen and pictures of Pentagon post plane. But we realized watching it, or what the video was showing, was that there was no plane. There couldn't have been a plane. And that blew our minds. Like, that was all we needed to see. And from there, I mean, yeah, it was all downhill from there.
Yeah.
So Loose Change came out shortly after that. The movies like Zeitgeist, and then we started listening to David Icke lectures, and we were introduced to, Alex Jones and all kinds of stuff like that, and secret society stuff, and just really just going down basically every rabbit hole that presented itself to us.
I may interject. I've figured out that it's kind of like an orb weaver or a trapdoor spider crossed with a rabbit hole. So when it opens the little spider trap door, it's a rabbit hole covered with all these little webs and strands that go in every direction simultaneously.
Yeah,
it's exactly like that. Yeah. Nothing was off limits to us.
And you never hit the bottom. Like, there's no bottom of the rabbit hole. You just keep going. And so, throughout all of that, though, we didn't ever lose our sanity, and we were able to still laugh in general about everything and maintain our senses of humor. And we were making videos also. And I have a background in acting, and Kevin's been making films with his friends even before we met. So we have this, we had a natural interest in just creativity in general, but we didn't know what to do with it. So throughout those years, the first few years, we tried being activists, going on the street corner and going to like 9/11 truth rallies. And, there's a place for that. And there's a place for those activists, and they're the warriors, and I'm all about it, but it didn't feel right for us. So we finally came to a point. Actually, we just made a video for fun.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, conspiracy theorist PSA, in 1950s, making fun of a 1950s propaganda advertisement about conspiracy theorists. And as we made it, it was first of all therapeutic for us, because it was an outlet for us and a creative outlet. And as soon as we did it, we realized just how important it was. And integral to the truth movement to have that influx of humor. And we realized that it had been lacking, and so then we found our calling. It was like, oh my god, like this is what we were supposed to do. And it took about 8 years to get there, but man, it's we're so glad we found it.
Yeah, it did take a long time to get there, and it was organic, which was what was cool about it. We had a couple of other friends that were open-minded. They didn't really travel down the rabbit hole maybe as deep as we may have, but they were open-minded and they were cool, and we all shared the same sense of humor, and they're all talented in their own ways. So we made the one, and we were like, wow, this is something more than just a little funny video. We got to keep doing this. And so luckily, all of our friends around us in the group were on board. So it was luck in a lot of ways, I guess, that we had people that were willing to throw in their talents and help us out, and have been doing that for the past 2.5 years now.
Right. So that's the long version.
Comedy's like weed. It brings people together.
Well, we've definitely...
it's true, man.
Weed is like maybe our 7th member.
Yeah, it's the 6th Beatle. 7th Beatle.
Yeah.
It helps with a lot of the ideas, and that's why we have some pretty weird videos on our channel.
For me, it just really helps with my rage.
Yeah.
It's a good way to help chill you out when you're really stressed out. But it can also be overdone too. And there's times when I got to step back from it, and there's times when I can't work creatively under the influence, so to speak. So it's all about balance,
Well, I think one thing that happens to people like us, creative people with a sense of humor or whatever, the only reason why we've got these understandings is because A, we're intelligent, and B, we still have a lot of empathy. And that's actually incredibly dangerous to you, psychologically speaking, because the smarter you are, the more terrible stuff you can work out, and the worse it will make you feel because you actually have a lot of empathy.
Oh, it's true, man. I always think of when I hear people say exactly the point you just made, I always think of Woody Allen and Annie Hall. He has a line in there somewhere where he says, like, unless everybody else is okay, he'll never be okay. And that's kind of the feeling you get whenever you start learning about the way the world works. Is the reason why we're screaming so loud at everyone else to wake up is because we're trying to help them and help us and help everyone and change the way things are. And so it gets really frustrating when they don't listen back. And that's, to bring it back to comedy, one of the biggest lessons I've learned in my travels down the rabbit hole is the art of communication. And frankly, I just don't think there's any better art than comedy to communicate with people. Maybe music, but yeah, man.
Well, it's about the enunciation of recognizable truth. And what's difficult about I don't know. I'm not sure what it's like to be an average person because I never have been. I've always been, sort of...
Ditto.
I stick out in the class, basically. I'm
yeah.
Not only am I 6'4", but I'm also louder than everybody. My cackles are raucous, Just basically, I'm
You're 6'4"?
Yeah. I'm not somebody who's easy to imitate, more or less. Let's put it that way.
I never thought you were 6'4", seeing your profile picture.
That's because I'm always sitting down in them.
That's true. You got to stand up and take one.
Yeah. Oh, well, there's a number on my websites and things of that nature from far away, and you see all these people standing next to me, and they're like up to my shoulder or something. And it turns out that being tall is a leadership characteristic, actually, which is why you'll notice if you look at debates between major politicians, you'll notice the shorter guy standing on something.
That's true, yeah, that's a good point.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, the point I was going to make was I was having an interview with Dr. Bill Deagle on the GCN network. I think he's like second cousin to Alex Jones or whatever. We talked about that off air, but he said that comedians... sorry, let me start again because I totally screwed that up. He said the two most intelligent people in terms of career choice are theoretical physicists and comedians. All right. And
go on.
I theorize that the reason why that is because it takes the same kind of material in order to do things. It's about translating complex equations which other people might not even know are there or even exist whatsoever, and compressing them into a formula that not only can people understand, but it works and is validated in and of itself.
I like that. That's cool. Makes sense too.
Yeah. At least that's my working theory on it, you know. I could just be going around saying, I'm smarter than you, but...
when you watch like George Carlin stand up or Bill Hicks stand up, I mean, when they finish one of their bits, I just think, man, this man was a genius. All these people sitting here laughing, you know, at the things that he's saying, but he's just downloading this information into them. It's amazing.
It is, and I consider myself sort of like a haphazard accident in talk radio. I'm kind of like what happens when you listen to too much Bill Hicks and too much Alex Jones at the same time.
Oh, there's a conspiracy theory that Bill Hicks is Alex Jones.
If you say so.
So,
yeah,
if that were true.
Tell that to Kevin Booth, the maker of American Drug War, who was one of his best friends, who's also been on the Alex Jones show, if he's his old long-lost friend, Bill Hicks.
Oh, man, don't get me wrong. It's not a theory that I support,
Yeah.
but it does exist.
Yeah, and if it were true, which I'm not saying it is, what would that make you?
It'd make me, just like everybody else, a really messed up product of my environment that's built on lies and crap.
America.
Which technically wouldn't change a thing.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Because I don't know, when it comes down to it, realizing the absurdity of it and becoming one with the madness, I've determined as a survival mechanism.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and those are two words that I always use regarding this. It is absurd. It's very serious, but at a certain point, it is absurd. It's ridiculous, and it's madness. So I totally agree with those two words.
And it's kind of like there's two choices. You can either choose to understand it or something like that. And I was wondering if when you try to understand madness, is the only way that you can actually fully comprehend it is to become insane yourself?
That's a good question. I don't know. I feel like I can observe madness and reactions to things. I feel like for like the Israel-Palestine situation, the reaction that the majority of the people in the West have to me is it's madness. This situation is madness. The fact that I actually have to explain to somebody that Israel is doing the wrong thing is madness.
Oh my goodness.
And then I guess then I also end up feeling madness about it, but.
Well, I just put a Facebook status up this morning on that. Israel shows pictures of bombed-out buildings in Gaza, claims that it's footage of Israel, blame Hamas, who Mossad set up to replace the PLO rocket attacks, and then bomb Gaza in retaliation.
Mm-hmm. Here, you know, this is something I was telling Kevin about the other day, because we put together this Emmy video last week that's on our channel right now. Check it out. But in doing so, we decided to focus in on the rocket fire as the thing to kind of like as the joke we're going to make about the situation. And I spent about an hour trying to find any footage of a Hamas rocket. There's none. There's zero. You see there's a couple, and I mean literally a couple videos of like fires, small fires, apparently in Israel, that are supposed to be the aftermath of a Hamas rocket, but there is absolutely no footage of a Hamas rocket. That is telling. Meanwhile, you have countless videos and so much footage of the destruction and chaos that is going on in Palestine from Israel.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. On the flip side, when I was editing together the montage toward the end of the video of all the bombs hitting Gaza, that was not hard to find at all. And it was difficult, frankly, to be downloading all these clips, watching bombs go off in Gaza, knowing exactly what's happening, and trying to put it together into a video that we can hopefully help and wake a few people up to. But yeah, it was limitless almost with the amount of footage that was out there on it.
Well, this is an interesting topic for us to get into, considering our field, because the Israel-Palestine thing, there is no comedy there. Okay, there aren't Palestinians running around there doing stand-up and making all the Israelis laugh. No, they've got white phosphorus raining down on them, bro. It's not going to happen, right? I try to make Israeli jokes. I try, What do Israelis say, what do Israeli tanks say to Palestinian children? Shalom!
Oh.
Why are Israelis suspicious of chickpeas?
Why?
Because they could become Hamas.
That's good. I got one. Hold on. I had one written down the other day. You talk amongst yourselves. I'll find it.
Oh, man.
No, but do you see the point that I'm getting at here? It's actually quite rare to see a funny Israeli-Palestine joke because...
That's what we had to do it. That's what we had to make that video.
And we knew that there would be people out there that would try to tell us that that this is not something to be joked about. They've done it in other videos, and we're not the only ones that people make comments like that toward, but it just got to the point to where it was like, if you're not doing something, if you're not saying something and speaking out about this, like Benny said, the frustration with the Western world and the people we know having to explain it to people. Beyond that, it's the fact that people it's like they know about it, but they don't want to pay attention. They're being complicit in not paying attention to it. So we had to be really creative and clever when we were making a comedy video that was going to sort of pinpoint that subject, because we didn't want to offend anyone. We've been carrying the sadness of this for a long time. We were both sort of depressed about this thing. I couldn't go, you couldn't go minutes or hours without thinking about it and whatever situation you were in. And still to this day, frankly. And we just decided we had to do it. I had a conversation with a friend and we were going back and forth. It was like a debate when I was camping a couple weeks ago. And they said, like, well, what good is it going to do me or anyone sitting over here talking about it when I can't make any change about what's going on over there? And I said, if you were over there, if you were one of these kids that are literally trapped and stuck in there, wouldn't you wish that somebody else in the world, especially the Western world, was doing that very thing and talking about it? So we just decided, we had a moment of fear before releasing it. We were a little afraid about how people might handle it, but we just said, screw it. We had to do it. Henrik from Red Ice, a friend of ours, Red Ice Creations, he wrote us an email and he said this great line, which I'm going to always recall, where he said, be brave and fear no topic. And I guess that's sort of where we're at.
And we didn't say anything about Zionism or Jews or anything anti-Semitic, whatever the people try to throw at anybody who criticizes Israel.
I don't like that term anti-Semitic because I think it's
worst of the worst.
I mean, what a genius setup they've come up for themselves.
Well, personally, if I was one of the 12 tribes of Israel, I'd be really pissed off that the Semites get all the credit for all the people that hate us.
True.
Exactly.
And it's a knee-jerk reaction, frankly. Obviously, it's years of conditioning, and I don't know, maybe that upsets people hearing that, but stop, pull back, take a look around. And when we've been called that, we've been called anti-Semitic and saying that our videos are anti-Semitic, and this knee-jerk reaction.
But like I said, I mean, we didn't say anything about Zionism or Jews. We just showed the difference in the rocket fire, right? So because people always play the middle ground in this situation, so we're showing, okay, this is what they're saying Hamas is doing, and this is what Israel's response is. That's all we're showing. We're showing it as a rocket show of a missile launching, and then showing subtly, well, not so subtly, showing Hollywood's reaction of applauding Israel and not standing up for Palestine, just keeping their mouths shut because they don't want to lose their jobs.
Which is also something that is true and exists. Look at Javier Bardem and Penelope Cruz and how they wanted to blacklist them from Hollywood for speaking out against it. It's just absolutely insane. And that, we have a Jewish guy in our group, a friend of ours, who's in that video.
Actually, we have a Jewish guy and a Palestinian.
Both in our group. And, we're not even allowed to say that. We're not even allowed to say, well, we can't possibly be anti-Semitic because there's a Jewish friend of ours in our group. They say, well, that
he must be a self-hating Jew.
Yeah, you can't pull that card. That card, that's not proof. That doesn't work. According to who?
Well, basically, I don't want to accept it, therefore it's not true. We're coming to break right now, guys. We'll be back in just a minute, ladies and gentlemen, with Benny and Kevin from Joy Camp, and check them out on YouTube, if you will. Bear in mind, this is a listener-supported broadcast, so go to thevinnyeastwoodshow.com and sign up today to start giving a regular donation. If you're a New Zealander, there's a Kiwi Bank account there that you can start up an AP into, or if you are overseas, you can give us some of your slave money via PayPal. We'll be right back. And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, with Kevin and Benny from Joy Camp. And we've just been discussing the Israel and the Gaza situation. And, I'm quite enjoying this conversation because it's actually a couple of comedians getting together and talking really seriously about a very serious situation. And I like what you said there before about how if you were in Palestine, and how would you feel if everybody on the outside who is able to watch you and your family and your general community get bombed into the Stone Age, would you appreciate the fact that there are people all around the world who are sticking up for you, who are trying to bring light to these issues? Or would you say, it's none of your business, shut up, just like all the people in the rest of the world tell us?
Exactly. And that's what it boils down to.
Where is the humanity in humanity,
Right. Yeah. And also, and beyond that, I mean, just the repercussions. If Israel can get away with this, it's bad news for everybody. I mean, the implications of what could happen as a result of this blatant slaughter, that's bad news for everybody, not just Palestine. So we have to say something. We have to stand up for it because this is going to be at our doorsteps.
Absolutely, it really is the last resistance of Palestine, and so goes Palestine, so goes everyone else, I believe.
Yeah, if they can get away with it, if we don't even stand up to say, hey, wait a minute, this isn't right. That has to happen. There has to be more of that from the West, because the rest of the world is against what Israel is doing. It's just the Western, the leaders of the Western Front.
No. It's simpler than that. It's just America and Israel.
Well, it's
no. I'm not kidding. Have a look at every single UN vote. Who are the people who vote to support Israel? Just the US and Israel. Like, what have they got? Like 170 war crimes or violations or some crap like that. It's out. I mean, it's out of control.
Yep, insanity, man.
Yeah, it's insane. And yet, I hear it, they're going to do some backlash for this, and yet we can't say anything about, these Jewish people who are in power. You can't say it. You can't criticize them because then you're anti-Semitic. And yet, I'll say Zionists to spare myself, but they've crept into every level of power around the world. How are they possibly the minority? Like, how are they?
Right.
They've said they've separated themselves from everybody.
And let us be very specific. He said Jews in power and Zionists. The Jewish people that we know and our friends and people in our circles, I suppose, or outside of our circles, have such. It's like they're taught to take it so personally.
Right. The Jews are innocent. In fact, the Jews are the pawns. The Zionists hide behind the Jews to get their agenda done.
Yeah, who financed Adolf Hitler and the alleged extermination of all the Jews? Well, I believe it was the Rothschild family, a Jewish bunch of bankers. So It seems to me like any racial group or tribe throughout history, they basically all just hate each other. And there's this real nasty group of people, even nastier than the rest, who decide, you know what? We can actually allow people to use their hate and use that as a weapon to control them and fight them off against each other. And you'll see this exact same tactic being used to argue for example, US border protection and things like that, preventing illegal aliens come over. You'll see this exact same tactic being used everywhere. It's not just a quote-unquote Jewish problem.
Right. And they're psychopaths. They have absolutely no empathy for humanity. And it's mind-boggling to me because it's obvious that they have selfish interests. But what are they ultimately going for? Like, what if they're killing off the population? In some cases immediately, like Palestine, or slowly but surely, like they do with the water supply and the food and the air. if they're killing people or people being diseased and the world is sick and the world is dying, like what do they stand to inherit if everyone's gone and the world is dead? Like what are they going to have? What are they going to have left to do? Then all the riches that they've acquired, what does it mean? What is it for? Like, what is their end game? Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
I had a theory about this. You know how they built all these underground military bases and things like that? So if everything goes to crap and their agenda fails, they can just get underground and nobody will be able to touch them. They got 100 years of food or everything. And I thought to myself, bro, you want to lock yourself underground in the dark with the worst group of sociopathic, pedophile, Satanist, ritualistic, murdering scum that the world has ever seen in the last 10,000 years.
Pedophiles. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
Let's say it again, pedophile.
Yeah.
Do the words poetic justice mean anything to these people?
That's what I mean, man. Like, what they obviously are very calculated. They plan these things out very well, and they have been for a very long time. But what are they ultimately planning for? A sick world and a sick humanity? Like, I don't get it.
The reason why you don't get it is because you're not an insane, deranged criminal sociopath with more money and power than God.
I relate more to, an ant on the ground than I do to a psychopath.
Yeah. Well, just think about this. Just try and imagine, use your mind. And just imagine for a moment that you're a complete psychopathic scumbag, you hate all freedom, all humanity, and you want control of it all for yourself, and if you can't have it, nobody can. Then, ask yourself, is the world still a crazy place, or now with your new mindset, does it suddenly make a fracking hell of a lot more sense?
I don't know, I feel dirty.
I suppose, but even so, like, I would still think, okay, well what happens when I get it? What happens then if I finally attain that absolute power and control that I want? Then what?
The end justifies the means. There is no end. It's total control, total domination. You'll be able to walk around immune from the law, and you'll also be able to live forever with life extension technology. And you'll be able to rape and kill and murder and pillage anything, anywhere, anytime with absolute impunity and immortality. That's what you get.
And then whenever we've sucked the planet dry, we just hop on our spaceships with the Archons and move on to the next planet, right?
Exactly, like a fleet of intergalactic locusts.
Yeah, or the Archons leave our brains and we're like, wait a minute, I'm still a human being.
Yeah, hold on.
I think these Archons need to do 6 months in Chino.
Well, apparently, if you go down the Archon rabbit hole, apparently they can't handle oxygen, which is why they don't make themselves known on Earth. But they're jealous of mankind, which is why they have infected the minds of the psychopaths, because they're jealous of a human life, so they're destroying the planet through psychopaths. Yeah. That's the Archon rabbit hole.
Boom.
We've got the creativity aspect. I like how David Icke explained it. He says that Archons are like this. You give them a blank sheet of paper, they're screwed. They've got nothing. You give them a piece of paper with just a few ideas on it, and they can twist it, they can distort it, and they can turn it into something that it's not, but they can't come up with anything original of their own.
I like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You ever seen a musician who ain't got no creativity? They're really good at playing, but they can't come up with anything themselves, and they have to steal other people's songs in order to become famous.
Oh yeah, like every pop song that exists right now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, minus the talent anyway.
Yeah, minus the talent, true.
Yeah, exactly. People bring three things to the deal. It's either talent, resources, or capital. And
it's crazy that I'm even like, that it even comes down to that. Like, it could possibly be something like Archons and aliens. It's like because you keep trying to understand where this is coming from, and you're ultimately at this point where like, well, I guess it must be aliens.
Yeah, it must be supernatural.
Yeah, it must be some force outside of our three-dimensional reality.
Because otherwise, I have no clue.
Yeah, I'm confused.
Oh, yeah. Well, the who's in control debate for me is very similar to the 9/11 debate. Oh, it could be mini nukes, it could be space beams, it could be controlled demolition. My theory is it's probably all of the above done simultaneously so that everybody will argue about it forever and ever and never actually catch or find out who the frack actually did anything.
Exactly.
Yep.
Did I miss something here?
Hidden in plain sight.
Yeah. When I was a talk radio, when I was a telemarketer, I learned very, very well how to manipulate people. But I refused to use lies to manipulate them. I only chose to manipulate them using the truth. That was the difference between me and the other people around me, is that I'd be able to convince somebody that I could help them, prove to them that I could help them, and then I actually help them. The other people would just assume that they can, lie to them, convince them that they can, and then take their money.
Yeah, as I was going to say, money's got to come in play somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas I made more money than everybody else because I wasn't doing it for the money. I was doing it to help people, reduce their phone bills and things like that. Right. Competing against massive American-owned foreign telecommunication companies that were taking out the New Zealand-owned companies' market share in our own country. That kind of thing. When I accomplish something, I try to make it for the best reasons, but I also acknowledge what evils that I might actually fall into the pitfalls of. I don't know if you guys have ever worked in office culture, but after a while, you start to realize that, oh my God, I'm like one of the only people with a freaking soul.
Oh man, yeah. I've worked many years in, BS office jobs. Many, many, many years. More than I'd like to admit, up until this year recently. And now I work for myself. But you really do feel that way. I did meet some good people along the way. You do learn that people's hearts are in the right place, for the most part, if they're not a total psychopath. And they want to do good, and they like to make other people feel good, and they like to be happy and all those nice things. But, yeah, most of them were completely asleep. They would listen to me, though. It's like you said, you worked that job and you got to infiltrate people. You made a little dent inside of the corporate world, and I like to think I did the same thing, too, in the years I put in.
Well, I like what you say about people, they have their hearts in the right place. They've just happened to have misplaced their brain.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think I think evil is more of an anomaly than anything. Most people are good. They want good things for themselves. They want good things for their family and their friends, and they want a simple, loving, caring life where they can be listened to and also be heard. And it's just so people live in such slavery, for lack of a better word. Everyone's in debt and have to focus on their jobs and their career and their family and paying bills and living in scarcity, always needing something else, and so they don't have the a lot of them, most people, are brainwashed through religion, so they're taught not to ask any bigger questions right off the bat, and they don't know what to do. They have there's goodness and love in their hearts, but they can't seem to make to enlighten themselves.
And that being said, I think that over the years, because people are just getting screwed more and more and more and more, everything is getting crazier and more insane and tougher for everybody on individual level and and on a global level, that I feel like it's a little bit, I don't know if easier is the right word, but it is kind of easier to sort of
check out.
Yeah, check out on one end, but also for people to listen to what somebody who actually has a message of truth has to say, like this thing that's been lying in them dormant their entire lives because it's been conditioned to be that way, is finally starting to spark up a little bit, like a dangling power line, the little sparks flittering here and there, because they're being screwed in so many different ways, and the world is so backwards in every single thing that you look at, that when somebody around them says some message of truth, especially when it's masked in comedy, their eyes become wide because they know deep down, it's like the truth calling them inside, and there's no denying it. Unless, of course, like we said earlier, you're a complete and total psychopath.
Yeah.
Well, statistically speaking, it takes 7 people to tell you the exact same thing. 7 different people, mind you, to tell you the exact same thing before you'll abandon a previously held belief, right? And so I thought about it like this. If everybody just plays their part, I call it the information grenade approach. You pull the pin and you chuck it in. If you're the 7th person, the person who you're talking to will have a reaction and start asking you questions. The bomb will go off, and then all of a sudden that's when the conversation is on. If you're with a person who's only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, people beforehand, they ain't going to listen to you. So you just pull the pin, chuck it in, and you hope that it blows up in their face later on because somebody else decided that they would play their part. Somebody else decided to tell that mother who has an iPhone right next to her child's head with a teething device on it while the baby's chewing on it, that EMF radiation from that is going to brain damage their child. All right. It's about responsibility. If you see something, say something. Campaign, you're familiar with that.
Right.
I wanted to start a counter-campaign, see scumbaggery, expose scumbaggery.
Yeah, well, there's brilliant conditioning in that people don't want other people to teach them things.
Right.
That's a brilliant conditioning.
Right.
People somehow associate their opinions with their ego, and they take new information that contradicts information they hold sacred as some sort of insult of their intelligence. When it's when you learn new information, it's actually a step towards enlightenment and wisdom. But they've been trained to not want to learn anything from anybody. They have to feel like they're doing it on their own. So that's kind of where Joy Camp came into play too, because after a few years of getting in arguments with people and to the point where I'm blue in the face, yelling and trying to defend a point to no one listening, thinking, okay, I got to reevaluate how I'm doing this. So
sometimes
it's about finesse.
Right,
finesse. It's about finesse. You have to open a door for somebody and hope they walk through it. But it's almost like manipulation. You're tricking them into thinking they're learning on their own, but you're actually the one who's guiding them. Yeah. And that takes some finesse, and that's been the most effective approach.
I think women would be really good at this because, my wife's incredibly awesome at getting money out of me whenever she wants something without and having me be the one to offer the money instead of her asking for it.
Yeah, there's a fine line between that sort of like finesse and passive aggression.
I get sex out of it as well. Good. Anyway, I was trying to expand on the element here. You know how when you become a truther, you become sort of like a depressing, yelling person, and it's kind of like I came up with this quip today. When you're trying to convince the sheep of something, your voice can sometimes become hoarse.
Yeah, but I'm.
and this is actually a very true thing. It's almost like you value other people accepting your ideas more than you value the fact that you've at least got these ideas yourself and they don't. Everybody wants to be appreciated for what they do. If you were never appreciated for what you do, if your boss never said, good job, man, that was actually really amazing. If nobody commented and good likes on your videos and things like that, it's not like you absolutely need them in order to do the job in the first place, in order to be motivated, but it's something that keeps you motivated. It's something that keeps you in the zone. Because I don't know about you guys, but I've stopped trying to talk face-to-face with people who are brainwashed, mind control, who think that I'm a stupid conspiracy theorist. I don't do it anymore, namely because it's really traumatic for me to be abused and to be told that I'm stupid when I'm not. There's two things in this world that piss me off more than anything else. One is being accused of something that I'm not, and one is other people taking credit for things that I have done. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's taken a lot of this is the 10-year anniversary, I think, of both of our quote unquote awakening. So we've had a long time to sort of figure out how to handle all kinds of situations, and I've really been teaching myself how to listen so that I can more, like I said, it's like kneading bread. When someone's coming at you. Since I feel like I am aware enough of the topics and the issues, I can hold my ground with just about anybody who's asleep. Anybody. And I'll find the cracks in their argument, and I can exploit it in a pretty nice way and in a questioning way. Like, I'll ask them a question, and even if they're getting frustrated, I can pretty much maintain my cool, usually. But yeah.
Well, you've encapsulated one of the really great archetypes of conspiracy theorists with your videos, Conspiracy Guy.
Yeah.
You know, I just sit there and I laugh at my ass off, and I was like, oh my God, that was me like not more than 18 months ago.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's where the character came from. It came from, you know, a sort of an exaggerated version of myself, but that's how I used to be. It'd be like, well, you know, here's this truth bomb, boom, and people were like, what are you, who are you? Like, we're just hanging out, and you're this guy, and, you know, it's, yeah, it is. It's making fun of being that person, but also getting the information out there.
Because you got, you know, you have to make fun of yourself, right? You got to poke fun at yourself a little bit. And this world of conspiracies is ripe for being made fun of. And I say that out of love because, you know, I am part of this world. But if we're just attacking the other side and not poking a little fun at ourselves, the message won't come across as well. So we like to toe the line, you know?
I like talking with people who are wasted, right? Like out at parties and things like that. I've got like friends in the music industry, and they're sort of semi-awake. You know, they're not active yet, and people have trouble letting go of what they're used to, more or less, as we all do. But I recall specifically one time I was in a bar out the back having a cigarette. And this guy starts talking to me, and then he starts accusing me of being a neoliberal and all of this other kind of junk. And I said to him, I'll tell you what, let's start again. Let's pretend we're gentlemen with manners. Let's pretend we don't know everything that's inside each other's heads. Let's pretend that through honesty, mutual respect, and reserving judgment, we're more likely and more able to understand one another. Do you agree to these principles of interaction? And he did, and we had a really good conversation. And a wonderful couple of drinks together for something that could have basically more or less been a fight.
Yeah, well, great tactic. You've obviously learned over the years, and as have we. And hopefully through that, your learning and ours and others, that we can help maybe inspire other people to do the same.
Yeah, and then what you did there, you know, Beth, like taking a step back and saying, okay, let's reset. You know, we're our hearts probably, we want the same things from life and out of life. Let's just talk let's go back to square one and start over again and actually listen to each other. And I like that. That's good.
Yeah, that sheep joke you said earlier about your voice going hoarse is so it hits it right on the head, man. You could spend an entire lifetime screaming at one person and never break any ground with them. And, you know, believe me when I say I've been there, because I have. And if you just can learn the art of communication, you know, it doesn't have to be through comedy, although it does help. But whatever maybe you're talented as, and you can just learn how to communicate with people. I think Benny said it earlier, you know, sort of listen to them and find the cracks.
Yeah, find the itch. Everyone's got an itch. Everyone's being screwed somehow. Find that itch and exploit it.
Yeah, and
that's right. Guys, unfortunately, we have run out of time. I have another interview that I need to jump into, but I really like you. You grow on people like a fungus, and that's probably because you're fun guys. And
guys.
And just like a fungus, we sometimes slip through the cracks. Good night, everyone. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Vinny Eastwood Show, broadcasting from New Zealand, the fabulous, the fluoridated, the allegedly irradiated, but of course we don't know because we stopped testing the seawater. You know, we figured what's the worst that could happen? A whole bunch of contaminated products and contaminated seafood would flood our shelves and give everybody cacophonous cancer rates. Nah, that's fine, bro. You know, we'll just drink more homogenized, pasteurized New Zealand brand milk in a black plastic bottle or something like that. You know, it'll all work itself out in the end. Nature works very, very well, especially at wiping out parasites that kind of live on its back. My very special guests are the creators of Joy Camp. We've got here. Guys, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks, Vinny. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, man, glad to be back.
Oh my God, I got such a terrible thing here. I only remember Benny. I can't remember your name, bro.
Didn't you say it? I thought you just said it.
Guys from Joy Camp.
Oh, yeah, it's Kevin.
Kevin and Benny. All right. That's better. That makes me feel a lot less uncomfortable.
You're Vinny, right?
Yeah.
Make sure.
Or is it Vincent?
No. It go by Vinny. Vinny Eastwood. You know, Vinny with a Y. It's the most important question. Eastwood doesn't go ahead. Make my news.
Like Clint Eastwood, or
Yeah.
okay.
Apparently, I'm like 15th cousins or some crap. So my mother tells me, but she never showed me the genealogy thing. So the most famous celebrity that I'm related to is Lucy Lawless' first cousin.
First cousin, wow.
That's pretty good.
Xena Warrior Princess.
Yeah, it's where I get my crazy megaphone antics from.
Oh, of course. That makes
It's all coming together now.
Yeah, in fact, it would be.
And it was a short video, like 7 minutes. There was no narration. It was only words on the screen and pictures of Pentagon post plane. But we realized watching it, or what the video was showing was that there was no plane. There couldn't have been a plane, and that blew our minds. Like, that was all we needed to see. And from there, I mean, yeah, it was all downhill from there.
Yeah.
So Loose Change came out shortly after that. The movies like Zeitgeist. Then we started listening to David Icke lectures, and we were introduced to Alex Jones and all kinds of stuff like that, and secret society stuff, and just really just going down basically every rabbit hole that presented itself to us.
I may interject. I've figured out that it's kind of like an orb weaver or a trapdoor spider crossed with a rabbit hole. So when it opens the little spider trap door, it's a rabbit hole covered with all these little webs and strands that go in every direction simultaneously.
Yeah,
it's exactly like that. Nothing was off limits to us.
And you never hit the bottom. Like, there's no bottom of the rabbit hole. You just keep going. And so, throughout all of that, though, we didn't ever lose our sanity, and we were able to still laugh in general about everything and maintain our senses of humor. And we were making videos also. And I have a background in acting, and Kevin's been making films with his friends even before we met. So we have this, we had a natural interest in just creativity in general, but we didn't know what to do with it. So throughout those years, the first few years, we tried being activists, going on the street corner and going to like 9/11 truth rallies. And, there's a place for that. And there's a place.
They do.
Well, that's actually the best thing I've heard all day, man.
Thank you. That's really nice.
That's great to hear.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm glad it helped her, too. That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of what I do,
Yeah.
You could have just sat there and told her jokes.
She doesn't like my jokes. Like, she dislikes me so... She really likes you guys now, but she dislikes me so much that she won't listen to this interview.
Well, then if you ever get into hot water with her, just throw one of our videos her way.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully it'll work, Something sponsored by Sia.
Most definitely. Everything we do is sponsored by Sia.
Isn't everything almost everybody does now sponsored by Sia? I mean,
or at least everybody is suspicious that someone else is working for Sia.
Yeah.
Everybody at some point is guilty of being a potential Sia employee.
It's like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, except it's Sia.
Yeah. The 6 degrees of Sia.
Yeah, exactly. That's it, man. We figured it out.
Yeah. I mean, people want to join Sia now, but I want to see it later.
Precisely.
Yeah. Now, speaking of which, the element of comedy within the truth movement, I've been talking to a lot of really serious researchers recently, guys, on my show, and frankly, it's so necessary to inject comedy into the truth movement for one primary reason, or at least what I think is the most important reason for it. Sanity.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth?
Ultimately, I mean, did you guys, like me, before you started to kind of laugh about this kind of thing, did you, I don't know, get depressed, angry, go through that phase where you lose most of your friends, your family stop talking to you, and you kind of lose your sense of humor for a little bit before you rediscover it?
All of the above.
Yeah, we definitely went through that. I think, everybody has that moment when you decide to, plummet down whatever rabbit hole. It's not a very happy experience. So we've all been there. Lucky for me and Kevin, we had each other throughout all of it. So we were always able to laugh. So we didn't lose our senses of humor through it, but we definitely went through the crazy phase, the maddening phase of not really knowing what to do with the information, not really knowing how to express it to people.
I'm actually interested to know exactly how this happened. Would you mind recounting this story? I mean,
of how we
for me, I watched a documentary, and a friend introduced me to Bill Hicks at the same time, and they sort of merged, and my brain got messed up by it, and
messed up in a good way.
Yeah, I mean, the short version of that, I think you're asking us where our background with all this?
Yeah, a long version would be preferable.
The long version. All right. Yeah, well, Kevin and I met in junior college about, 11 or 12 years ago?
Yeah,
11 years ago. And this was pre-YouTube days. So maybe if YouTube was around, it definitely wasn't something that everybody was aware of. And so there weren't like viral videos. There wasn't instant access to information and alternate points of view available back then like they are now. And we hit it off just on a friendship basis, and
like a real way.
Yeah, like a real genuine friendship, and we were able to make each other laugh. And I think that's when you know you have a real friend, is when you have the same sense of humor. And then at the same time, we both were introduced to a video in college about the Pentagon.
Really good to jump through the air onto the shoulders of my prime sinister. But
I say go for it, man. Just say yes.
Yeah, just be you.
Just say yes to getting arrested.
Exactly. Words of wisdom from Joy Camp.
In fact, I was interviewing a hemp producer the other day, and he was talking about how having these really good hemp smoothies can actually relieve the symptoms of PTSD. And I told him how I got mine was getting busted by the cops. And he's like, no, this can solve that, And I go, well, no problem, bro. I'll tell you what, you make me a smoothie, and I'll go get myself arrested by the cops, and I'll see if I handle it better,
So did you get your smoothie or what?
Nah, he gimped out on me.
Damn it.
When it comes to the crunch. Anyway. What have you guys been up to? Because I introduced my wife to your YouTube channel the other week. She was really, really sick. And I saw these research articles about the benefits of comedy. One of which stipulated that they had these two test groups of women. One in one room watching boring travel shows, and one other group of women in another room watching really, really funny stuff, right? And they're laugh out loud funny, right? And what they found was they monitored the blood, testing for antibodies, the kind of stuff that fights viruses, white blood cells, that kind of thing. And they found that the women who were watching the comedy stuff had a 40% higher antibody count. And so, in an effort to help my wife get, well, I introduced her to Joy Camp, and she got well.
That's awesome, man. You probably should have just put on the Food Channel, because women love the Food Channel.